Looking at 6:34, I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Champaign County Board Community Violence Prevention Task Force. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Carter,
Here.
Esri,
Present.
Furtado,
Here.
Lakshin,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Michaels, Patterson.
Present. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Moved by Esri, second by Carter. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next we have public participation. I did not receive any slips. Oops, just kidding. Next is approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the May 17th, 2022 minutes?
I can so move, Lakshin.
Second, Carter. All right. I'm not seeing any discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Now we're at public participation. Again, I do not see any members from the public. So next is communications. Any committee members have any communications?
I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge that yet another young man lost his life to gun violence in Champaign in the last week. Prentice Jackson, 18 years old. I just think this highlights so much the importance of anything that we can do in the position we're in, we should be doing.
Thank you. Any others? All right, now moving on to presentations. First, we have the Urbana Park District, and we have Tim Bartlett. And
Good evening, all. I'm Tim Bartlett, the Executive Director at the Urbana Park District. I'm here with Corky Emberson, our Superintendent of Recreation. He can introduce himself when he speaks, but we're appreciative to be here tonight to present. First off, let me start out by saying we appreciate all the cooperative efforts that Urbana Park District's had over my 30 years in working at the Park District with Champaign County. Certainly, we've been at Brookins Gymnasium as a partner in renting space at Brookins for 25 years. And also, another example would be our award-winning Weaver Park watershed basin right next to us at Weaver Park, and a number of other intergovernmental and municipal type agreements and cooperative efforts. Tonight, we're here to ask the task force to consider granting the Urbana Park District $2.5 million for the building and construction of the Urbana Park District Health and Wellness Center. We wanted to provide a little background and provide some information to support that request. You'll see on the screen some work we did back in 2018 when we started our strategic plan for our 2020 plan that was approved by the Board of Commissioners. You'll notice the four main areas in the graphic representation: rehabilitating Crystal Lake Park, reaching more underrepresented residents, finishing out the Kickapoo Rail Trail, and proposing a new health and wellness center in Urbana. And I'd like to point out that three of those goals, reaching underrepresented, KRT, and the Health and Wellness Center, all come together at the Weaver Park site and the adjacent Prairie Park, where we propose to build the facility, which is right next to Brookins Gymnasium. I want to provide a little more information. We did receive a lot of outreach and input throughout the community through surveys, focus groups, interviews, and more. This graphic was a result of a visioning exercise that we did with our community, and more specifically with our Citizen Advisory Committee. These were their ideas and things that came from the community as well. The key thing about this facility is it helps address reaching underrepresented groups through our You Belong Here pillar, which we mean by that everyone's welcome, everybody has value, we don't judge, our doors are open, and we just want to serve people. And again, I would hope that this consolidated focus on really trying to bring people together, improve our health and wellness, and serve our community and through connections and trails and parks is evident. Next. This next slide, I don't expect anyone to fully understand, but just a brief snippet of where we are in our budget process. You'll notice the lower section shows what we have in our current funds. We have a variety of gifts, grants. We've raised a lot of private money. We're seeking some funding from other statewide sources. And you can see we have about a $2.5 to almost $3 million gap. So we're really talking about closing that gap and how do we build this facility. The next slides really relate to that space. And again, there are more graphics, but on the left, you'll see the first floor, which is a single gym. We've got some offices and a basic fitness space with some restrooms and change rooms. The second, the alternative slide shows what additional funds could do: build additional fitness, flexible, recreation space, and add that second gym. So it's really critical. The next slide, I think, shows the second floor. Again, on the left, you can see a very basic, almost Brookins-like facility. And then on the right, that expanded build out that would give us, more capacity. A quick side note, we visited the Martin Center at the Champaign Park District today and noticed, they have a very similar facility. Champaign actually has 2 facilities already ready to go. I think they opened in July with the Martin Center. And I'd point out that Urbana really doesn't have a comprehensive facility at all. We're not really able to serve our residents in any way. While we're very appreciative of being at Brookins, we know it's a middle school gym. It has one use at a time, and it has no support secondary spaces if you had groups. So a quick example, we've been working for 4 years to get midnight basketball in Urbana, and working with Reverend Comer. He's saying Brookins isn't going to work. It's just an open space. And so we need breakout rooms, mentor spaces, places for volunteers to come together. So due to the high level of violence, to be honest, they're willing to start anyway. And so we are going to start at Brookins. And then the hope is that we transition to the new facility that will give us more options. So that's kind of our interim plan. Next slide, please. I just wanted to close and kind of make some key points with this health and wellness facility. Get caught up to my pages. I'd like to point out that creating a safe community space is a really critical need as part of this project. Serving this building would serve as a hub for other organizations involved in this work. We know that many of our partners that Corky will talk about next are also groups that have already presented to you. We look as a way that we could create the home or the place for many of these other groups to help us work. The other key thing we want to point out is we're essentially moving our facility into a hotspot. It's a high kind of concentrated zone of number of shootings. There's certainly been deaths in the area. We looked at a number of other locations throughout Urbana. Obviously, we selected this location because the need is so great. The access and the flexibility that it would provide between this facility, the parks, Prairie Park, Canada, and Weaver, really start to build an open space network, trail network, and a recreational facility. Lastly, I'd like to point out too that, with this facility, we can engage our youth and families. There's job opportunities. I think there's economic recovery, as well as providing safe, healthy, positive places. I'd like to close my portion and turn it over to Corky to tell a little more about the activities and programs, but I want to leave you with this idea that we're so committed to this project, we really feel that building gyms over building jails is really a critical factor. And again, we don't have any public facilities that are comprehensive in Urbana. All of our constituents that we all share in supporting have a great need, and we think that this facility will have a great impact on that. I'll turn it over to Corky to talk a little more about the benefits and the programs and activities.
Hi, thanks for having us. Like Tim said, my name's Corky Emerson. I'm the Superintendent of Recreation for the Urbana Park District. And I'm going to talk a little bit about programs. I know our time's getting tight, so just want to talk about what we do from an outreach perspective, and also what I think this facility is going to do to help with community violence. A safe community space, extended hours. Here at Brookins, we have over 100,000 visits here at Brookins every year in programs, and that's it. They can only come during programs. So this will be the teen hookup spot where they come and hang out. It'll be the place for older adults, families, and will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. So this, again, like Tim was saying, this is a site and an opportunity that Urbana has never had. And we feel just based on our 100,000 visits, we'll probably end up with 200,000 visits with a facility of this size. Tim mentioned investing in a hotspot. There's 2 areas, the Scottswood area and the Learman neighborhood area is a hotspot for gun violence. I'm sure you've all seen the graphs and the charts to share that information with you as well. We're committed to accessibility and affordability. Low-cost memberships, lots of scholarships. I'll talk a little bit more about scholarships in a few minutes. Free facility park Wi-Fi. We've been starting to do that around a lot of our facilities so that you don't have to be in the facility. You can be around it in the park and be able to connect to Wi-Fi. That is also, one of the issues when we're talking about the community compact and with the chancellor's office at U of I is getting technology throughout the county. So free outdoor amenities, again, those are in our plan. That's not part of the original plan. It's connected for future. But there will be spray ground, picnic shelter, playground, basketball court, paths, all those kinds of things. As far as programming, it's going to be investing in our youth as far as after-school programs. Tim mentioned midnight basketball, and obviously you can't operate a facility of this size without having plenty of staff. Before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to give you an idea. We've been asked, well, if you build this facility, how do you know it's going to do something, right? How do you know it's going to bring people in? Well, we started outreach and wellness about 5 years ago. And with that, part of that plan was to do what we call Urbana. Hopefully you've all heard of it. It's been around in all of our neighborhood parks. It's been at Steer Place, Silver Water neighborhood, Ivanhoe Estates. We've been out at all those places with Urbana. Last year alone, we had 55 events, had 2,581 individuals impacted, and 146 individuals assisted with full scholarships to programming. So when we take Urbana out, it's a different scholarship program than what we typically offer. You come to our Phillips Center and you fill out a scholarship, and it's a partial based on your income. Well, we've had some funds set aside where we've been able to give $35,000 a year of free ride scholarships. They don't have to show nothing, prove nothing. They just fill out the application and sign up for what they want. Well, that's what we're going to be doing and continuing to do, not only for the new health and wellness facility, but that's what we're doing throughout the park district. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste of that. And then lastly, just want to talk about partnerships. One of our good partners, DREAAM's here right after us. But we've got several partners that we work with to provide partnerships and coordinate programming together. We knew as the Urbana Park District, when we started outreach and wellness, there's a lot of things that we can't do alone. We're not big enough. We don't have the staff to do things ourselves, but we can partner with many, and that's what we've been doing to not only help them with their programs, maybe provide our showmobile for their event, just provide space, but also with DREAAM. DREAAM did a fundraiser last year, and they did it at Phillips Recreation Center. I think, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $28,000 they were able to raise for this annual fundraiser, which was phenomenal. Again, we're doing it because we're trying to help our partner. And this space has a community room space in it. And hopefully those partners keep coming and we have a spot for them to do the things that they need to do. Tracy, I know they are looking for a larger space this year due to the good turnout that they had, which is fantastic. But a space like this would be plenty size, I would think, to do a really big fundraiser. And, you know, Tracy's just one group. We do a lot with Neighborhood Connections. We've been working with Neighborhood Connections. I've been here 23 years, and I was working with Danny Mitchell and Janice Mitchell 23 years ago. So basically, I just really want to make sure that the idea here is that this isn't the Urbana Park District's facility. This is Champaign County, the community, and all the groups that need and are trying to gain the same accomplishments that we are as far as keeping violence down, families active, and being a brightest sunshine for everybody each day. Lastly, we have a timeline, obviously. We've been in this process for quite a while. We started schematic design. We have a construction manager group that's on board. As they got to 25% design, they were able to then send it out to the local trades and bring us a estimated cost. COVID didn't help that, obviously, and we were way too high. So we had to go back to design, and now we're finally back in the zone where we think we at least have the base bid like Tim showed you. Again, not the plan that's going to solve all these things we're talking about, but that's the plan we can afford at the moment. We're hoping that process is then finalized this summer, the design phase, bidding it late summer, early fall, breaking ground yet this fall, and then our opening target is October of 23. So other than that, I appreciate your time, and we'll answer any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. McGuire?
Thank you. This really sounds great. I like the programming a lot, especially the support for fathers. The basketball is Willie Comer's basketball program is fantastic. I did have a couple questions though. Some of them are overall spending that we have, because obviously these are important programs. It depends on how much money we actually have. But so if you build this building, what happens to the lease with the Brookins building? And second, just make it easy, how well are you doing staffing for the Urbana Park District now? And then will you be able to find additional staff, as you suggested, for the programs? I mean, those are two important
I'll direct that.
requirements. Thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry. I can address the first part about Brookins, and I'll let Corky talk about staffing. Several years ago, when we first started this planning process, I should mention we've looked at several other options. We looked at something with the YMCA to try to get Champaign County-wide to build something in Urbana. We looked at a downtown Urbana solution working with the county, city, MTD, Park District, and School District. That attempt didn't go. We looked at Lincoln Square as another venture that we could get into the center of Urbana that would be convenient and good location for all. Couldn't make that happen. After all of that, we determined if the need is so great, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to go out and raise the money, find the money, and get the partners. So I started working with Darlene Kleppel and the staff at the county to let them know, hey, we should start talking about that transition. At that same time, it probably was good timing. It sounded like the county is looking at other options for space. So we like the idea of this planned, coordinated effort. If we could move out, that might free up space for another group. Or if the county transitions from Brookins to the Plaza building downtown, that certainly would open up other opportunities. But we've been very clear to the administration, we're very interested in the outdoor spaces. We have a number of ball fields we've leased for a number of years that frankly the whole community, has come used to. We would still see us in a lease arrangement for those or any other transitional options. We would want to work with the county to make sure those open spaces, were kept in public lands or space that wouldn't be needed for the building if it were sold or transferred to another group. So we're very flexible, and we appreciate Darlene's openness in understanding that and working with us. So we're very grateful. Obviously, we don't want to appear ungrateful to be at Brookins because frankly, it's met our needs at some level for 25 years. But we've, as Corky said, with over 100,000 visitors a year, we know we can't sustain that, in a small space. So again, a cooperative effort, and I'll let Corky talk about staffing.
So our outreach and wellness department has 2 staff, a manager and a coordinator. Our athletic staff has a supervisor and a coordinator. Those 4 staff will be working out of the new health and wellness facility. We have 1 full-time front desk staff that will be coming over from Phillips, so that, they can manage the front desk process. And so most of all of our hirings are going to be part-time staff. All of those areas, they already have tax support that goes to each of those areas to pay for staffing and any other supplies and cost. Of course, there's always programs, and those programs do bring in fees as well. So that's the plan. There's no plan to hire, new full-time staff. It's more to take our staff that are kind of working at a couple buildings anyhow and move them to this one.
I can go after, it doesn't matter. Just a couple quick questions. One, I know Washington Street's out here, and I think Lerman's down here. How far is that from here?
It's about just up the block, in fact,
Uh,
just on the other side
okay.
where the Prairie Park
Right.
softball fields north and south.
Okay.
Those fields will be taken out, the building would be built
Because
there.
having this outside area is going to be important, that it's pretty close, because everybody's kind of used to coming here.
Yes, absolutely.
And then my other part is, how do you incorporate or how do you enhance this to include some of the outlying areas? How are they affected since this is county ARPA money? I'm going to be pretty blunt with you. I come from the
Please.
northern end of the county, and we do use some of these services, but how do we attract or enhance the usage from the outlying area for some of the other kiddos and families?
Yep, very good question. I'll address it, and Corky will probably add some things too. That's another very important issue. We know in this edge of Urbana, there's neighborhoods that are in the city and out of the city, or in the county or in the city. Obviously, as a recreation professional, we look at everyone's needs. We understand there's tax supports and, the geopolitical boundaries. But what we're trying to do is overcome all of those opportunities. For example, if the county was supportive of this, is there a way that we could find access for county residents to come to the facility? That might be a condition upon, that we would have to look at. We're kind of limited by our geopolitical boundary in that we know that Urbana taxpayers support our services. There are outlying groups that can access our services, but there's often a extra fee that's applied for those outside residents. One way to sort of break through that is, as Corky mentioned, with scholarships, but we're really kind of looking at free and open time activities, basically to let anybody that needs space have some level of access. I don't want to take all the thunder. You probably have some other thoughts.
No, well, I think just like we've brought this up several years ago, thinking of, how we can bring in other county residents. Until the last 5 years, you wouldn't necessarily see us going into Ivanhoe Estates or any other area that's outside of the Urbana Park District. But we know that if we want to reach those individuals who need reached, that we need to have a broader scope. I love the idea. We do this with our indoor pool, where we have anybody who's in the Urbana School District gets resident rates. Most of our facilities, you have to be in Urbana Park District. So I could see us, possibly negotiating Champaign County residents get resident rates at this facility. And I think that's something that could be worked on.
And just to be clear, if it were up to us, we would just open the doors. It's that great, and that's how we think about the work we do. But obviously, we have, structures that are upon us, and we're trying to follow those and respect those.
I just have a quick follow-up. I'm sorry, Samantha, real quick. I think part of the reason also is kids have friends from all different areas, and they're going to come from all different, and they're driving. A lot of them are driving, especially, the males and females that want to play basketball or whatever might bring up their friends from, another community. And I can see scholarships from other communities coordinating with this, but I just wanted to see that there would be a collaboration that wouldn't say, oh, well, you're not in the Urbana Park
Right,
District,
right.
so
We
we can't
understand
do
that.
this. You've got to go to Champaign.
Well, I can directly address that. Corky showed the graphics of all of our partners, and we have more. They may not come through the door with the UPD, but if they came through DREAAM or HVNT or one of their programs that we're opening up, that's another way to get county residents or Champaign residents or frankly, residents from anywhere. So what we're trying to create is many on-ramps so that it's not just through our portal that they can access, but they may be through any partner that we open up. If they're there that day, they're coming in getting services. So that's another way we can guarantee that there'll be a more equitable distribution.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I guess one of my concerns were being an Urbana resident during my childhood and coming from a family of 6, their programs were great but never affordable for my family. And so I never really took part in those programs. And so to see the collaboration with programs that I'm already definitely in support of, Midnight Basketball, DREAAM, also Miss Janice Mitchell program, Urbana Neighborhood Connection, that really, I guess, changes my view because I've never seen this happen before with the Park District, and I'm very thankful for that. Also, is there an age limit? Because someone told me just the other day, they said, right now, the city of Urbana and Champaign are trying to get the youth out the street, but sometimes they need help. Their parents need help getting out of the street as well, right? So when I see age limits on things, that kind of shut that part down, where I feel like, if that parent is potentially in the street, I think programs that will be offered would be a wraparound service for the whole family, just not just the kids. So I would definitely like to see no age limits on certain things when it's,
No,
when you come
absolutely.
back.
We're trying to reach everyone of all ages. So there's no,
Right.
we're not just going for 5 to 12 or, we're trying to bring everybody in. One of the new things that we did after our underrepresented study that we did about 5 years ago, which is actually being redone by the Diversity Research Lab on campus. They're looking at what we've done and how it's working and what more we can do.
That's good.
But one of the things that came out of that was a demonstration kitchen. And so we have a demonstration kitchen now at Phillips where we're trying to bring one program, it's programs for everybody, but sometimes we do like singles cooking class. We do kids cooking class, but there's wine tasting, cooking class. So we're trying to reach everybody, not just youth.
That's good. And you want to make it affordable, right?
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
Absolutely.
okay.
Let me talk about one more layer. It's in our second phase, but we really have the outdoor amenities. Obviously, we wish we had everything included, but the indoor facility will, as we said, scholarship, open times, events that will open up, free access. But the outdoor amenities that we're talking about, promoting the playground, spray ground, trails, pavilions, basketball courts, other play areas, bike training. Who knows? We're going through a process to pull that rest of that plan together. Those will be the facilities available, essentially 365 days for free. People can come over, use those amenities. Obviously, the spray ground's a seasonal element, but we know for a fact, some families can't afford to come to Crystal Lake Family Aquatic Center, but they may be able to make it over to the spray ground, have a picnic, spend the day, and, use that as their opportunity right in their backyard in their neighborhood. So those are ways we're trying to look at how do we do both ends? Be responsible, still run a facility, collect fees and charges. We have bills too, and offset those costs, but we've got to find better ways to get people that can't afford access in the door at a program, an event, or with one of our partners coming in through that facility for an experience, as well as our other facilities. We have a nature center, the lake house, Phillips Recreation Center. So we're looking at the whole system and how we look at all those facilities together to offer more to our community and county.
And then I was also, one more thing, thinking on the aspect of transportation. I don't know if you guys thought of that as well,
We
but I
have
know
a lot.
some community members don't have transportation, and maybe they don't have bus fare, for their
Right.
kids. So I was just, a thought I was thinking about partnership with MTD and maybe do a free day, to the recreation center. I was blown away by $35,000 in grants. I didn't know that you guys gave away that much, and that's awesome. And then you said your facility would be open until 9 p.m.?
Yes, and it could be later if there's special events or rentals or, things like that. But I do
Okay.
want to mention the transportation. We spend a lot of time, things we know, the barriers, money, socioeconomic, transportation, and then are you offering appropriate services that people really want? Is it to their liking? We know that we deliberately located in this part of Urbana, an equity approach. Our facilities are spread out, but we don't have anything on the east side of Urbana that serves people on the edge or on this side. So we literally, when we went through our sites and determined that was the best site, we knew people could essentially walk or bike to the site. I'll be very basic. How is it walkable? That's the first easiest way to get people there. Trails, another way with bikes. Certainly buses, is if you can have access. So we're trying to think at least the surrounding neighborhood can people walk over. Another program that Corky talked about is the Urbana. We go mobile. We go to them. So that's all part of this facility and the staff that'll be working. So if we knew there's a group that needs services, we're going there and we'll be there.
And do you think this is an achievable goal that you guys could be done by next?
Yes. Really our main, there's a couple of caveats, I should say. We're all struggling with supply, demand, getting things, inflation costs. That's one of the reasons we're here tonight. Our cost inflated. We can't do this project if we can't get help. So we're out asking every partner that we can you help us at whatever level that you can help?
Thank you.
Jenny?
I guess my question follows that one up nicely with the funding question. In looking at your cost estimates and funding, I was curious, are you in a place where you would be ready to break ground at the end of the summer, like with what you have now, or is this project holding pending? It looks like you're 116,000 and change short of the base level goal.
Right. I think our goal is to reach the full program because we know less than that won't really serve. We might as well stay at Brookins, to be frank, and save the money. Because while it would be a nicer space, a few amenities, you're getting a little bit of office space, maybe a flex space. We're ready to go. We've put in this time and effort and getting the resource. A couple of things that might slow us down. We're seeking another grant from DCO. We got to let that come through. We're anticipating a fall announcement. Everything's contingent on the funding, but if everyone's doing their work and all the money's available, our goal we'd love to break ground this fall. If not, and we're still waiting for agencies to announce or award, certainly we'd try to do it as soon in the spring in 2023. But that would be our goal in this fall. And that's right up to December, what we would consider fall. So.
Right. So, just full disclosure, I'm about to geek out on y'all for just a quick second. So my world is parks. I'm an historian, and for 20 years now, that's really alarming. I've studied urban parks and specifically their role in promoting or subverting racial justice in communities. I've written a master's thesis on a park in Indianapolis and a doctoral dissertation on this around Cleveland. So I've written like 600 pages on this topic. And I worked for the Indianapolis Parks Department for 6 years and was their grant writer when we did about 6 projects like these. And so, like, you know, for years attended the National Recreation and Parks Association conferences in DC, dozens of community meetings, got them certified by the NRPA as a parks department. Like, this is my world. So I fully believe in, and I think locally, the example of Douglas Park demonstrates the tremendous amount of potential that these kind of spaces can have. So putting that aside, as the finance chair of the board, thinking through the ARPA money and everything like that, one of the specific questions I have is, what's the ask?
2.5 million. And
So that's the ask,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think I introduced that when
Okay.
in my introduction, and I'm sorry if I passed over that,
And
I wasn't
then-
clear.
And then the second question I have is, I totally get that y'all didn't receive ARPA money directly, but the city of Urbana did, and frankly seemed to be kind of lagging on their their decision-making process has been somewhat slower than the other entities. So I just, to Diane's point, I could see perhaps the county participating, but I would think that the city of Urbana would need to come to the table with some of their ARPA money. And do you have a sense of if that's going to happen, or are you in a similar conversation with them?
We are.
Okay.
Obviously, they are in a different process. We have a
Right.
timeline I think that Corky shared. Certainly, we can flex, you know, as we need.
Right.
But without knowing for certainty we would receive it, or how much,
Right.
or literally, you know, how the county would react, we have to ask. You know, when ARPA came out, we were right on the, you know, mark of, hey, our park districts, forest preserve, conservation districts, special recreation districts included. Guess what? We weren't. So when we asked our statewide officials, why were our agencies not included when we have just as much as recovery, loss,
Right.
death, and misery as everybody else? They said, oh, I guess we made a mistake. It's an oversight. Go ask your counties and your cities.
Right.
So that was the instruction we got from
Right.
our leaders. And, you know, obviously, if we had our own resources, we would probably be further in that process. But to address your point, let's surmise for a moment that both the county and the city could help. I mentioned those outdoor facilities. We also mentioned inflation. These are costs we're hoping hold. They may not hold when we get to go to bid. And so we need every dollar that we can. Any extra money, or let's say city and county both participated, we would move to that outdoor amenity list.
Right.
Because the sooner, frankly, we get those in place, that's going to help everyone in the county. Frankly, you know, because those are the things you'll count on daily, weekly, monthly, that you can go at any time. Mention the Kickapoo Rail Trail. It's not unlikely that people from Ogden and St. Joe could ride their bicycles over to Urbana, visit the park, or use one of the facilities, or come into the health and wellness facility. So we really think that that opportunity exists. We don't know what the process the city's going to take. We would certainly hope and think it's an obvious, you know, facility that they would want to support. We just don't know that. We can't risk sitting back assuming they'll help out.
Right.
Once we knew the county was, you know, interested in receiving proposals, I reached out to Darlene, I think a week after ARPA was announced, with a letter saying, hey, we could use some help. You know, we'd love to talk with you. So we're trying to pursue every opportunity. If there's other grants, if anybody knows of other resources, let us know, and we're going after them.
One last question I had is, so one of the other things that this committee is thinking about and that we've been considering is sort of an umbrella proposal to address community violence called Harm, Healing, and I'm going to go with Hope, three H's. one of the big issues is in conversation with them, and it's in a sort of a similar type of thing to the acronym y'all got, like an umbrella group that has several different groups underneath it, and thinking through how we as a county could sort of do similar work that Champaign is doing. One of the big issues we've talked about is facility space. One of their requests, kind of like DREAAM, is like maybe to build in some facility costs. And then we had this whole conversation about, well, is it going to be one facility? Is it going to be 5 facilities? And maybe this could be some sort of, do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that there would be an opportunity if we did go down this path to come up with some sort of agreement as part of the donation that the county's community violence initiative could in some way, shape, or form, I don't want to say be housed there, because we do think we'd like to pursue other facility options, but avail itself of the space as it's Urbana. Do you know what I'm saying? Is that something that you all would be?
Yes. I mean, I think that's part of the collaborative partnership. You know, if it's good and it's effective, if we can be a part, we're already there.
The last thing I want to say is, like I said, I love parks. I believe in them with like we could go get a beer and we could do this for like hours. Like I could talk to you in deep. I love talking about parks. But I also want to say, just to be blunt, it's a pretty high ask given the landscape of what we still have left. And so I don't want to make it sound like that we can meet this, like the full bore, and that's why I was asking about Urbana. I think it would be much more likely that we could come to the table with something if we knew what they were doing, and frankly, we just really need to know what they're doing.
Right.
And that said, too, the other thing, though, I do want to say is, out of everything we're doing, building things is the easiest. Facilities are just, frankly, the easiest thing that we can do. That's all.
All right, anybody, Mr. Storr?
Thank you. I'm not part of the task group, but I thank you for allowing me to weigh in here. And I agree with Stephanie about the value of parks in communities. I've seen it in our own community, our own neighborhood, where the Urbana Park District came in and rebuilt Victory Park. You remember that.
2007.
Victory Park is where you went to get your recreational drugs, recreation. It was no place for decent people. Wasn't a play. One of the apartments actually had a mountain range of trash so high you couldn't see over the top. Working with the Urbana Park District, which they aggressively, Helen Kirsanoff, bless her heart, worked to find community money, DNR money, community development block grant money. It was a little bit here, a little bit there, and changed that neighborhood. It is now a place where you see mothers with children. They're not afraid to go there. We used to have community neighborhood picnics there until COVID, and it is a much different place and really improved that neighborhood. Made a big difference. Only a few blocks from my house. So I speak in support of this, and I know that Urbana Park District has a pretty good record of working to accomplish these things. One last thing. If you did receive less than $2.5 million, could you put that to use?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. You know, obviously, we would receive any contribution with gratitude and appreciate where the sentiment is coming from, and we do understand you're trying to cover a lot of ground and you have some limits. We were hoping, and we believe, that this kind of proposal could meet many of your goals and create a long-lasting, you know, most of our facilities have been here 50, 60, 70 years. So that's a long time to get value back out of it. So I did want to at least express the value return on investment. If there was any way to meet that request, certainly that would speed things up. We'd have a direct approach, but we understand you're trying to cover those dollars all across the county.
Mr. Esri?
Thanks. I guess tying in with the idea of not getting your full ask from the county at this point in time, have you pondered the idea of if you have enough to build the larger building, the 2 gyms, you could say, but just not maybe finish off a part of it? Now, granted, I know that's far from ideal. I know that, but like maybe finish, if you have enough, you build the bigger building, you maybe finish the gym area, but you just don't finish quite all the office, smaller room space at this point in time. Have you considered that? I mean, at least.
Go ahead.
We actually have it built out into a base bid, and then we have alternates. And all those different colors that were on the layout that Tim shared has a price tag. So I want to say the second gym was, making it a full second gym was $1 million. And then the other rooms added on to that to come up with our $2.5 million.
Okay.
Also, just one of the kind of unique things with these kind of facilities that have the double gym and the raised track that's up of the elevated area, it's kind of difficult to come back and add, another gym without tearing half the track off so there's an economy in that. So we would have to carefully select, but as Corky said, we're thinking in alternates. How do we make whatever dollars we have go as far as we can?
So, okay. Sounds like, you have considered that.
Yes.
I mean, and obviously building the main building,
Right.
the full-size building to begin
Right.
with would be the best. And then, like I say, maybe just don't finish off some of the other spaces quite yet if you didn't have the money. But, and still, that is, definitely
Well,
far from ideal.
It'd be safe to say the Park District is probably similar to the county. We do those kind of things, get your space and then finish it if you need to later. The other thing I'd mention, if there was ARPA funds that would come in another wave, I don't know how you're structured, but if there was, I'll just say it, some now, some later, that could work, or something designated for outdoor amenities is another way to look in the future. So we have to be open. And how do we get this heavy lift done, help Urbana and the county, and it's unlikely we'll get a check written for the full amount for everything, indoor and outdoor. So we're going to have to piece it together and phase some stuff. But the contingent thing is the need is so great right now. If it takes 7 or 8 years to get where we need to go, how many people are going to be dead by that point? So we feel an urgency here to get something done ASAP, and we know our previous work in this area has been very effective. If we can work with our partners and we have a hub to work out, man, we haven't received any, large corporation gifts or any, $5 million donors on this project. We're doing it with the people of Urbana and our state agencies in our county and our city. So it's a different way that maybe other communities do it, but that's the only way we know how to do it. Get a great vision, piece it together, rely on your partners, and lean on each other for a common cause.
I just have a comment more than anything else is back to our task as community violence prevention, our task force. And I see that it will take different services, takes activities, it takes all kinds of people, it takes programs, it takes activities, it takes all different ages, but we have to make it sustainable also. And so one of the things I think that happens when you have a new program facility, I mean, certainly you have a long record of the things that you're doing, and they're wonderful. Urbana Park District has got a great balance sheet also, I might say. But at the same time, we can't do everything for everyone. So I think we need to be careful that we see that things are working, and when they don't, change them before they get crazy. So our times are changing, and I think in any of the monies that we give out, that's one of the things I hope that we accomplish through this group.
All right, anybody else? Samantha?
And so she just said what one of my thoughts were, Ms. Michaels, your maintenance plan. So who's going to take care of the maintenance of this new facility?
Very good question. We know that attractive facilities bring people.
Mhm.
If you don't maintain them and you let them run down, and I know Chris made reference to, Victory Park. I think that was part, the neighborhood situation and just the frank age of the park since it was last renovated. But good maintenance, maintaining your facilities is very important. We have a very intensive capital replacement program for our outdoor pool. We started a renewal replacement fund, so we would always be saving a little bit of our tax resource for when the big pump goes out or concrete cracks up or you have a leak in your pool. We'll need to do those same things with this facility. So we're planning ahead so that we don't get behind. As local government, we're all challenged with that. So I wouldn't be honest if I said, oh, we have money in the bank, any need we can cover. We'll have to carefully plan out and use our capital strategies to upgrade. But we have, to your point, talked a lot about the actual facility, how it'll be maintained. Will we have custodial attendants there? Will be the greeters and the staff there, to meet the people and get them set up? And yes, we'll do that. And we'll take criticism from the community. If it's not right, we hear about it. And our goal is to fix it. We're like any other business. If we don't take care of our customers, they're not coming. They're going somewhere else.
Thank you.
Just one last comment to Chris's comment about Victory Park and DNR participating in it. I think one of the important things to recognize is kind of starting in the first decade of the 2000s when the federal government took a concerted and intentional turn from investing in urban spaces, a lot of those pools of money dried up. So the Urban Park and Recreation Recovery Act stopped funding projects about halfway through second Bush's first term. The Land and Water Conservation Fund essentially is no longer a program. There's a little bit of historic pres money in DNR, but even that is a pittance to what it used to be. So where the federal government, where you used to do projects like this, be able to sort of go after big federal grants as sort of a linchpin to get the projects done, those days are over and have been over for 2 decades. And it's trying to fund out a project like this now has to be done through corporate sponsors, bonding, or these once-in-a-lifetime sort of ARPA situations, because that sort of steady stream of federal in urban infrastructure, not just for parks, but specifically for parks, is no longer the case. You couldn't do a Victory Park project like with that same funding landscape that you could have 2 decades ago. It just doesn't exist. That funding just doesn't exist.
Thank you for that. You're absolutely correct, and you have an amazing recall of history.
All right, anybody else? Are you guys' boundaries identical to the city of Urbana?
Slight differences. We have a couple of areas that go outside of the city boundary, but generally anything that comes into the city automatically is brought into the Urbana Park District. But
Okay.
we do have a few parcels outside of that area.
Jenny?
Sorry, that just brought up a question for me. What exactly is the reciprocal agreement with the Champaign parks? Is that the same rate as residents for all
Yes.
of your facilities?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a good point. Thank you. I should have mentioned that, or we should have. We do have a reciprocal program with Champaign, so if you live in either community, either residents can access at the same rate. So anybody in Champaign could come to the facility, and they will, and they do, to participate either in indoor or outdoor activities.
Yeah, we've definitely taken advantage of that with Crystal Lake.
Right, right.
And I promise I'll stop talking. One semester in my doctoral work for a class on public policy and poverty, my capstone project was a policy paper on why urban park and recreation recovery grants should be funded again. So if you ever want it, it's like 10 years old now, but I've got a ton of data specifically on what stopping funding that program has done to urban parks.
Right.
You good?
Just
we
a
know you
question we have. Is there any additional information you would like? We have a vision book that is digital. We could send on. It has the entire process of what we went through, all the sites we looked at. very intensive, but we have that, and it's wonderful information. If you're interested, we'll forward it on to staff and make sure you get it.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Pardon me? Full board? Yep. We can direct it to Darlene or to staff or whoever. We'll get it to you.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Because then you could read yourself, you know, the process and evaluate all the steps we took and all the sites we considered and the parameters and sort of who the facility's intended for, feedback we got, things like that.
Cool, great, great.
And then I just, again, thank you all for being able to come and present to you all. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. We appreciate Darlene Kleppel's help. Everyone has been terrific. We talked with Chris Storr and Mary King, who are District 10 representatives. They were very thorough in their questioning and criticism on where we are at this point in order to help us prepare for tonight, so we greatly appreciate that.
All right, yeah, thanks for coming out. It's been really thorough information.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is a presentation on the Manhood Training Camp.
Hello, everyone. My name is Banio Koroma Jr. I'm a local conflict mediator and also a mentor and youth advocate. And I'm here on behalf of Vision to Succeed. We are a cultural and social organization that is working on changing the social norm and culture of violence in our community. One of the first things on the agenda is to change what a lot of our at-risk youth see as toxic masculinity. And one of the ways we're doing that is we're trying to counteract the gang recruitment. And for those of you who are familiar with the draw of gang life and culture is obviously a lot of our youth that feel like they're left out and they want to feel like they're a part of something. Unfortunately, it's usually their peer group, which unfortunately they're all involved in a culture of violence and crime. Our goal is to counter that culture of crime and replace that negative masculinity with positive masculinity. So far, what we've done, we're actually on the second part, we have a 5-part series. It's called Manhood Training Camp. And basically, our goal is to teach the young men the true definition of manhood. And again, our goal is to counter all the negative current cultural influences of toxic masculinity. So what we do is we teach codes of ethics, and we teach the young men how to live a life full of prosperity, honor, and principles. And during the summer months, obviously we're aware that that's the time when the gun violence reaches its height. So instead of waiting to get our program together and everything, we just went ahead and went full steam ahead. And we started right before school got out. We started our first manhood training camp, and because we wanted to reach the at-risk youth before they went out in the summer, and obviously got involved with gang violence and gun violence. So it's a 5-part, and again, the Vision to Succeed, we're an organization that's working to change the culture of violence. The Manhood Training Camp is one of the programs that we offer. So in our first program, we had about 15 youth from all over Champaign County, predominantly from high-risk areas or areas that have the highest prevalence of gun violence, such as Garden Hills, Country Brook Apartments. We even had some young men from Rantoul. And basically, what we did was we actually took them out of their toxic, dangerous environments and took them out in a nature setting. And we actually exposed them to things and experiences that they're not accustomed to. For example, we took them out fishing. We taught them how to kayak. A lot of these young men have never even been on a boat, let alone kayak before. We start off with self-reflection exercises. We ask questions, what is real manhood? And obviously, you'll get the standard response of what the media teaches these young men, which is part of the problem. So again, our job is to counter that with positive role models that the youth can relate to. However, that's just the beginning. Our goal is to, once we get these young men, we want to train them to be leaders in their own communities and then go out and become agents of change in their communities. Our goal is actually to impact 960 families over a few years. Basically, I'll break it down. So when we first get these boys, it's self-discovery. So mentees to participate in self-reflection exercises, and we force them to take self-inventory. The second stage is we call it game planning stage. The youth complete visualization and goal-setting activities. Families of the mentee receive a free strategy and life planning session with not just my staff, but we also have a mental health therapist in-house. And we actually do the wraparound approach. So, for example, we can teach a young man how to conduct himself a certain way. However, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, as soon as they go home, everything we've taught them has been untrained, not just by their peer group, but actually the parents. So we actually, they say it takes a village. So not only do we start with the young man, but we actually want to impact the entire family. So we're also going to have in the second phase, we have a family life strategy and planning session. It's not just to meet the families, but also we need natural supports to keep these young men accountable so that they don't regress. Also, that's one of the ways we're going to make this sustainable, is because we want the community to embrace this, and we want the ultimate goal is to train these young men to be junior mentors and impact the peer group, because once we infiltrate that peer group, then it spreads out. In fact, there was a study by University of Pennsylvania that stated if you wanted to change a culture, all you need to do is impact 25% of the population. So there's all the data's out there. I mean, you guys have all the data all the time. Our target number is 960 families eventually. Basically, the first year we plan on reaching 72 families. By year 2, 144 families. By year 3, 288 families. By the end of year 4, 576. And if this works the way it's structured to, after that it'll be 980 families. Similar programs like this that have been conducted in Chicago and other major cities have actually resulted in a 35% reduction in gun violence. So the data is out there. We're not reinventing the wheel. However, we feel that obviously it does take a village. So we already have collaborative partnerships with I know everybody keeps mentioning DREAAM back there, but yeah, we collaborate with them. Also on the community violence response team with CU Tri and Karen Sims. I'm a community member. In fact, I do have a stake in this. One of my mentees was murdered, and the Youth Build is actually building a structure in his name. And I also mentor our Youth Build as well right now. So I'm very heavily involved in the community. And so we're basically already doing this so far. All the funding has been coming out of our own pockets and donations from churches in Rantoul and local constituents who see the value in what we're doing. Our goal, obviously, is to reach more families. Obviously, we're limited. Our goal is to raise $44,000 for the first year. And I have a budget and to show where things will go, where each item will go for that request. So that I don't get off track, let me just give you a brief summary. I promise you I won't be long. What is Vision to Succeed? Basically, As I mentioned, we're a social cultural organization working on changing the culture of violence in our community. Excuse me, 1 second. Okay, here we go. Excuse me for that. Yeah, we're committed to decreasing community violence by recruiting and training young males to be positive leaders that display honor, purpose, and an ethical code of conduct in their communities. Our goal, as I mentioned, is to enroll 25% of at-risk males from ages 11 and up from communities most impacted by gun and domestic violence. As I mentioned, our goal is to impact 960 families in the Champaign County area by countering all of the risk factors that perpetuate gun and domestic violence. Our goal is to recruit, train, and develop young male leaders from the community and to help them earn an income doing it, which is where some of the stipends, that's where some of the budget will go to. Let me just talk frankly. So basically, one of the lures for gang life is not just you get the acceptance, you get the protection, but also easy, quick money. So how do we even compete with that? We have to show them honorable ways of making money. Basically, my goal is to make it look cool. It's cool to earn an honest living. It's cool to take care of your family. It's not cool to just take advantage of people in easy, quick money. It's cool to work hard. That's what a real man does. So that's the essence of what we're trying to implement to these young men. So that's the one thing. So we pay them a stipend, but also we want to teach them entrepreneurial skills because many of them are entrepreneurial. So, for example, one activity we do is we give them a task to go out in your community, find me one problem that you see, and then come back, and then we're going to find a way to solve that problem. Because guess what? As an entrepreneur, a business owner, solving problems is how you make income. So, for example, one might be, my neighbor's lawn is high. Okay, lawn care. How about we get you a lawnmower? You and your crew or your peer group, which is who we're trying to infiltrate anyways. All 6 of you guys. Go ahead and cut a few yards, and then you guys split the proceeds. It was legitimate financing, and it was we get them involved so that they don't have to feel that they're lame or they feel like they're being judged by their peer group. And then guess what? If they are judged, we tell bring them on. We'll teach them too, and then that's how you impact the community organically. We operate outside of traditional business hours, generally on Fridays, sometimes Saturdays and Sundays. And then as we move into the school year, we'll be working, obviously, our plan is to partner with schools because schools have all the data, they know all the risk, all the at-risk youth, et cetera. But in the meantime, after school, and then obviously we basically want to catch them at the times where they're hanging out with those negative peer groups and bring them in. Part of the entrepreneurial component is we'll taking them on field trips. For example, say we take them to a bowling alley. We give them an assignment. Okay, so before we go in, your assignment is we're going to analyze this business. How many customers are coming in? How many employees? How much money you think they're making? What are their costs? Do they get to keep all the money? How about taxes? And just by changing their mindset to see the world differently, that they can attain these things, we feel that that's how we're going to make the biggest impact with these young men. I also have in fact, when I came here, I was told not to bring a proposal, but I actually got a program overview, and I have a breakdown of the funding, et cetera. So yeah, the main thing is we want to recruit the youth, and we want them to buy in, because that's the only way you're going to get them, because their peer group, they already have the allure, the culture says you should be this way. So, and then finally, and I'm going to wrap up. Finally, we're going to identify youth that have leadership qualities, which again we're training them to be leaders in their own communities, and then eventually agents of change. One of the tracks is if they do pick up the entrepreneurial side, we help them start a business, et cetera, a legitimate business. The other side is if we do identify some youth that have some strong leadership qualities, we will actually hire them into the organization as junior mentors. And in fact, if this works correctly, after a few classes, some of those junior mentors should be able to run the entire class or the entire course. And with that, keep in mind, as we're doing that, we're instilling values, we're instilling ethics, code of conduct, morality. So we're going to make those things cool to the youth. So that's the goal. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm open to questions.
Okay, thanks. Samantha?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm gonna tell you a couple of things that stood out. You're a conflict mediator. And how long have you been in Champaign County?
I've been living here for about 7 years.
Okay.
So,
Okay, long enough. So if you know a lot about what's going on with the violence in our youth, you would know that there is one group of young men that are literally killing this group of young men back and forth. That's what we're seeing in our streets. I think the approach is conflict mediation. That really stood out because a lot of our young black men, they are feuding for no reason, and then they don't have the adult figures like yourself to help them get through that feud. So that definitely stood out. Also, age 12 and up, right? Because I think kids outside the age of 18 still need our assistance.
mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your asking for funding? Your request?
It's $44,337 for the first year, and obviously those numbers are based on capacity, amount of students young men we take in.
Okay. And you're a registered nonprofit organization?
We're currently a private nonprofit.
And those that are wanting to attend your program, I see there's a $40 participant fee. Is there any type of scholarship program?
Yes, ma'am. So when we started this, we know one of the, obviously we're not going to get into barriers of entry, but obviously we know our population. However, we first wanted to get the ones that had parental involvement, because in order for this to work, it's going to take the parent at home that's taking it serious. So that was one way of, I don't want to say weeding out, but testing to see which parents actually were willing to invest into their sons. That being said, obviously there's plenty of people that want to invest in their sons, just don't have it. So what we did offer scholarships, which some of the admissions were covered by churches, local families in the community, and we don't turn anyone away. In fact, I'm glad thanks for reminding me. So not only do we offer scholarships, again, it's a buy-in. Like these men know, there's nothing in life that's free. They even they know that. So even despite the ones that didn't have scholarships, we gave it to them anyways. However, on the condition they had to write an essay. What was that essay? They had to write down what their life goals are, what adversities they overcame, and what help they need, and what a vision for their future, because it's a vision to succeed.
And is there a number currently? How many you have in your program participating?
Our first program, we had 15 youth, 2 from Rantoul, majority from Champaign, Garden Hills area, high-risk areas. And basically, it was all done organically, just word of mouth, so no ad spend. So obviously, once the word gets out, we actually were scared that this thing actually might take off too fast, and we might have to put people on the waiting list. So in fact, this part 2 is Friday, and in this one, we actually didn't even reach out to. We told all the parents that came that it was to come, because ideally we don't mind having smaller groups, just because when you get into a deep self-reflection process, you kind of want to do, sometimes I might have to go one-on-one, and if I only have, and that's another limitation we have, we've been relying on volunteers, local men from the community. And, obviously, I want the entire community, but I'm very selective on the men that are mentoring these youth, because I don't want them to learn the same bad behaviors here that they're already accustomed to. So we have a slight vetting process. So which also limits the amount of volunteers that I accept. Again, I don't turn people away, but let's just say if you don't pass the vetting process, you'll probably just be a greeter at the door as opposed to running a workshop or doing a deep self-reflection exercise. However, that's the point, because guess what? I don't want to say debate. Debate is the young boys, but through the young boys we get to the big brothers, the stepdads, the mother. So that's where the second one comes in, because once we get in the home, we already know what's happening. The mother's super stressed out, so we offer wellness. So for example, the follow-up to the first one, we had a mindful kayaking event. It was targeted to the mothers so that they can get a respite, retreat away from their day-to-day stressful life. So we feel very confident. We have a mental health therapist on our team. She works primarily with minority women. She's a minority woman, and we feel uniquely qualified and equipped to handle this problem. And obviously, it's going to take a village, so we're collaborative. We'll be collaborating with some of the people in this room and some of the other people you've had in here before.
And so I'm just sitting here with my mind going, because I can see you collaborating with the Midnight Basketball, Reverend Comer. I think the connection with you and DREAAM, Mr. Tracy Dace, is awesome. And Housing Authority, I was thinking too, like some of the young ladies that's in the Housing Authority program have men that could definitely use this manhood training camp. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to think back to the numbers. Did you say you were trying to reach 72 families in the first year?
Yes, it breaks down to 6 young males a month, which comes out to 72 families a year. Because 72 families. I'm sorry, yes, 72 families a year. By the end of year 2, it'll be 144, and the goal is to double by making it organic. So, for example, let's say one of the young men, the junior mentors, if they recruit 6 of their peer group, which is who we want anyways, we'll give them $20 for each member that they recruit. So then it incentivizes them, like, oh, okay, we'll do this. But guess what? Even though it's a win-win, because he's getting some income, legitimate income. We're bringing in that peer group, and then we're changing the culture through socially and mentoring and life coaching, instilling the principles. And obviously that we hold them to a high standard. So part of like our second session is once they identify that's why it's so important to have the family involved, because let's just say one of the issues is the youth is butting heads with their mother. How would I know if that's better unless I get the mother involved to we're going to check in and for the accountability. So
I have a quick question here. The information that we have is on the Manhood Training Camp 1 and 2, but then it seemed like you had a program that went in addition to this, because you're open all the time. So the funds that you're asking for, are they to help fund the camp or just the program in general?
Good question. So the reason why all you have is the Manhood Training Camp is because this is what we're actively doing now. And as the word got around through the some of your partners, the Community Coalition, and the people who invited me here, they like what we were doing. I had Champaign, the blueprint come out, and again, we weren't waiting for funding. We weren't waiting for anyone. We just decided there's a problem. What can we do? And that's how this all came upon. In fact, I was in preparation for this meeting today. The person who invited me, I asked her if I should bring a proposal. She told me no, but I brought one anyways because so I do have this the entire proposal with budgets and more information for you.
One of the questions we're asking everybody is, so this federal ARPA money, especially the program side, goes away after 2024. So if we did fund this, how would you sustain it beyond that time frame?
Great question, and I think I touched on that. We're going to eventually look to partner with the schools and cities, and again, we just rolled this out. We weren't depending on funding. I mean, so far this has been self-funded, and we'll do that if we have to. The community are resilient, and if they see the value, there's enough people that want to see change that we can keep this thing going regardless. However, obviously, funding is great. We can expand more. However, that wasn't our initial goal. It was just to start, make a change, and if it grows. And that's why the component of sustainability is the more we train these young men, they should be going out and recruiting other young men. So once we have a network, so that's the thing about the high standards. We want them, in order to counter a gang, when they're entering a gang, they're entering a family. So what we're creating is a brotherhood. So once they enter the brotherhood, it's supposed to be so organic and real that it goes on beyond. So it's the way that they conduct themselves, the way they dress, the way they're, if you're a part of this brotherhood, we don't condone that. We don't condone putting down women. We don't put our hands on women. And so we want once we instilled our values and principles and codes, this should be the junior mentors should be able to go out and be brand ambassadors for this culture of being a prosperous minority and just a productive member of society. So when the funding goes, we were here before the funding and we'll be here after the funding. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that.
Anybody else?
So how often do you guys meet?
As of right now, we meet once a month. However, once the school year, and that's going to be the important part. Once school year starts, we'll be probably meeting every week. And as far as the conflict mediation, we do offer short-term interventions. So, for example, if one of my youth and mother's button heads, they can call us and we'll do a family conflict mediation session. And our goal is to even, once we get into schools, because I'm already talking to a few people, we'll be offering the service and we can go into the schools or partner with the schools. Because, see, if we take them out of the schools, I know that some schools are, it gets a little tricky. So we'd have to work around the schools. And that's why our hours are weekends. So far, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. At the times when gun violence is most prevalent.
Right. Thank you.
There aren't any more questions. I'll move on to the next item. Thank you for coming out. Really appreciate all the information.
Thank you for having me.
Next is
Okay, we'll do.
All right, we have Tracy Dace from Dream House.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Nice. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Tracy Dace. I'm the founder and CEO of DREAAM. DREAM is an acronym for Driven to Reach Excellence in Academic Achievement for Males. In 2015, we set out to improve the kindergarten readiness of African American boys in our community. And from there, we have grown into a community impact organization focused on disrupting cycles of poverty and trauma in the lives of boys and also girls. And we provide healing-centered engagement, services, educational programming as a vehicle to do the work in order to transform their lives. And when I arrived here in 2007, I came here with a purpose of completing a grad degree. And since then, I've really been blessed to be in this community, to be a part of the work in order to transform lives, prevent violence, and to just give our young people an opportunity to be great. In 2017, we became a nonprofit, and from that expansion as a nonprofit, we also expanded to the Rantoul community, and had the opportunity to place our community services there and grow and be a part of the fabric of that community and being a part of the community transformation that's needed for the whole county. Also, during the pandemic, we recognized that our girls needed us just as much as our boys, and we expanded and opened our doors and began to serve girls. So our priority is the health and the wellness and the futures of boys, with the emphasis on African American boys, but we see boys as a part of a unit, as a part of our community. And so we now serve girls, young women, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, auntie Nims, and all of them that come with our children in order for them to be successful in our community. So if you return to the second slide, when we began to unfold the vision for DREAM, we decided that we wanted to make a long-term investment in the lives of children. And in order to do that, we have to develop a pipeline or develop a system of starting very early in building the foundations for success, and building the foundations for conflict mediation, and building the foundations for future growth. And so DREAM is a pipeline model. We start at the age of 3 because we know that prevention is important. It's not only important for economic reasons. We know if we have more prevention, then we have less crime, we have less unemployment. But we also know that prevention is important for humanity, for life, and for community. And so our pipeline starts very early with early childhood education, and beginning to not only think about education as a solution, but also mental health and social emotional learning as a solution. And so we take dreamers through this pipeline from age 3, and we make this very long-term commitment in their lives to the age of 24. And so the first stage of DREAM is the beginner stage. As I mentioned before, that's where we begin to focus on early childhood education and developing relationships with parents and families. Then the next stage is achievers. So that's where we begin to also think about literacy and social emotional learning, building those foundations for exploring careers and exploring conflict resolution and communication skills. And then the next stage is believers. And so they enter into this stage as ready to become young leaders. We begin to think about and discuss gang prevention and college readiness, those sorts of areas of their life. And then that last and critical stage is transitioning them to be chasers of their dreams, taking all the skills that we have provided and encouraged and mentored so that they can actualize their goals and become successful men and women in our community. That's our goal, is to really do the work and set them up for their greatness, for their success. Give them the tools that they may not have. Teach them the skills that they may not receive in other places. When they're at DREAM, they get that opportunity to do that. And so the numbers there show the impact that we've made just this year in serving our community. So this summer, we have a large vision to serve 500 youth across the county. This pipeline that we speak of is not just focused in Champaign. It is a vision to have DREAM in spaces across Champaign, Urbana, and Rantoul. And so we are well on our way of reaching that vision of 500 dreamers, starting at the age of 3, also entering kindergarten all the way to the age of 24, running 9 programs across the county at various locations. So when you think about how do we do that as a young nonprofit, it is collaboration, it is support, it is having big vision and working with the community in the village, in order to accomplish the vision of pouring into our young people. So the last 7 years, we have been able to really develop a strong foundation as it relates to positive youth development, building community collaborations, building relationships with parents. So we are at a stage at DREAAM where we have the capacity to move into the next most critical area, is really designing with community, designing with families, looking at the research in order to have an expansion and growth in our mental health services, and where we are not only supporting children, but also supporting adults. So now we're moving beyond the focus on the child, but now looking at the holistic approach to supporting and empowering the whole family, and particularly parents. When I think about the work that we do in our community, we're great at youth development. We just had testimony from the Manhood training program, the power of working with our young people. But the missed opportunity for us is the power of working with our parents. That's when that's when you can have more transformation, more sustainability in the work that we do and the work that we need to do in order to disrupt violence. And so I just want to make a side that when I appreciate you acknowledging the young man that was murdered over the weekend, that young man was a dreamer. He came to DREAAM at the age of 16. He came to DREAAM having experienced school failure. He was involved in the juvenile justice system on parole, had just returned from the community from a youth prison facility. His younger brother has been in DREAAM since he was 3rd grade. Now he's in 9th grade. And his mother is amazing. She did everything that she could do to help him, to connect him. However, he made choices, or he was placed at risk in making those choices, right? Because our young people don't want to be murdered. They don't want to go to the JDC. But however, the circumstances sometimes around poverty and trauma has placed them in those risk areas, right? And then they have those limited choices they have to make. And so it's critical as a community that we really take a holistic approach at this point. How do we reach, teach, and empower youth, but also how do we reach, teach, and empower the whole family and adults and parents? And so that's why last year we developed this initiative called Hope for the Future. How are we proactive in violence prevention in our community? Right now, we are in a crisis state. We don't really know what to do. We really don't know what to do. But we have to plan for the future. We have to begin to do the work to lay the foundation for us to have health and nonviolence and increase post-secondary outcomes, career-ready youth in our community. We have to start today planning and doing the work in order for that to be our reality, to be our existence in the future for Champaign County. So this initiative entitled Hope for the Future is a path to proactive violence prevention. Thinking about now, how do we weave together the fabrics in our systems, the fabrics in our community, in order to have this path of thinking about developing a foundation, a healthy foundation for our community, for our young people. And so to do this work, we want to be intentional, we want to be serious, we want to take our time, look at and involve as many partners as possible. So we have laid out a 2-year pilot. I know that's not the norm when you think about a pilot, but we want to be effective and to be culturally sensitive, and to be innovative in the work. And so we want to take our time. We want to spend this year and next year really working through some strategies that we feel are the beginning stages of developing this approach to being more proactive. And so our goal is to reach 1,000 individuals across the county in Champaign, Urbana, and Rantoul. We're already working very heavily in the Champaign community. We have been here since 2015, building relationships, building partnerships, having impressive documented outcomes. We also have that same track record in Rantoul. We've had some attempts to build that sort of support in the Urbana community. I'm not giving up on it. It'll happen one day. But the goal is through this initiative and through the support from funding agencies like the county board with the ARPA funds that we can have some pilot money in order to just begin to plant a dream in the Urbana area so that we have this beautiful opportunity for our young people to be a part of the community, for our parents to be supported, for us to be one of the solutions, because we have many solutions in our county. So we have 3 strategies. The violence is complex. The root causes are very complex to really kind of break apart. And so we know that there is not one solution to address violence in Champaign. And so our approach through Hope for the Future is to really have 3 beginning strategies that we implement across 3 communities, and we begin to test and evaluate and engage community in building out those strategies and seeing that they work. And then as we collect that data, then we will continue to add strategies as we grow this initiative. It is a 2-year pilot, but we hope that we develop models, that we develop best practices that can then be implemented and sustained, and then we can take on other opportunities for us to develop new strategies. And so strategy number 1 is wellness for all. And we see wellness as a spectrum. So it's cultural wellness, it's racial, it's academic, it's physical, it's mental. So we want every person in Champaign County to have access to wellness. It should not come at an expense. I appreciate the work of many of our agencies that offer wellness programs in our community, but many of those programs are not affordable. So how can we create wellness programs that can be sustained within their neighborhoods, within communities, right? You can run a soccer camp at a local church. You can train a local church how to run a soccer camp, 6 weekends, a year or more, and that can make it more sustainable for that community to continue to have those type of resources there available. And so we want to bring wellness to the neighborhoods. We want Rantoul and surrounding rural areas to understand that wellness is something that we can create and implement and sustain for ourselves. And so we want to have not only wellness for children, but also wellness for adults. And we plan to have self-care and other ways that we want to empower parents to think about themselves as vehicles for wellness, so that then also spills over into the whole family. And so I just wanted to share that this work started in January, so we do have outcomes that we can speak to that we're testing and implementing now, so that we know that Hope for the Future is working. We recently had a soccer camp where we implemented it across 3 communities, and so we had over 100 young people in Champaign, Urbana, and Rantoul playing soccer, learning about social-emotional learning, nutrition. Families were involved. We developed this belonging model where they were able to take those materials home and also engage in wellness in their homes. So it's really giving our people the opportunity to have tools to be empowered, to see themselves as influencers, as doers, as in control of their lives. The next strategy is Hope for Boys. It's critical that we have a plan, a community plan, a comprehensive plan in Champaign County that includes the disparities that our boys face. If you look at the data across any system in Champaign County, you will see that African American boys are overrepresented, marginalized, and dehumanized in many spaces. And so how do we create opportunities that instills hope, but beyond hope, also how do we have programs that are youth-centered, that are culturally responsive, that understand that they need both physical enrichment, but they also need mental health care. They need mentoring. They need it all in one inclusive, comprehensive package. And so Hope for Boys is that strategy to whereas we take something as simple as basketball, it may be simple to us adults, but to them, it's dope. It's important. They cry when they lose a game, and they're happy when they win a game, right? So it's very, very important to them. But you take that as the carrot to bring them into this engagement opportunity, and then from there you begin to build out what they really, really need, right? And so Hope for Boys is that opportunity to really think about designing experiences similar to the Manhood training program that really addresses what they like to do, but it gives them what they need, and that's the goal. And we want to teach them to be young cultural influencers, but also young conflict mediators. They are in schools, they are in the streets. So how can we give them the tools in order to be able to be a part of the solutions that we have around conflict resolution? And so there's a lot of research around well-being. There's a lot of research around physical health as a benefit to the lives of young people, not only just their physical health, but it also benefits their academic health as well. And the last strategy is Black family wellness. And so if we go to the data and to the disparities in our community, and if you look at the violence data, we know that violence impacts many African American Black families in Champaign County. And so how can we not have an initiative that focuses on the wellness and the health of Black families? It's important that we also focus that energy around prevention. And so strategy number 3 is Black family wellness and using wraparound services as a vehicle to really support families, equip families with information and skills and resources so that we are addressing early signs of social, emotional, and mental health difficulties in our boys, particularly. It is not a deficit model by any means. It is saying that they are great and they're brilliant. Their parents are involved and concerned. And how do we as a community wrap around these families and then continue to build their greatness? Assist them with the skills, work with them to address whatever those early signs are so that we can get in front of it, so that we can be proactive and not allowing it to extend and kind of grow and blossom into greater concerns. Because it's my theory, if we were to look at, do a retrospective case study of the young men who are actors and victims of violence in our community, we could probably link to some early signs of social emotional difficulties in school. And if we had possibly addressed some of those issues and provided the supports in a culturally family-centered way early enough, then there may be some possibilities for growth and healing, in the lives of many of our kids. Many times that is just overlooked. We don't have enough resources. Mental health is expensive, particularly when it's offered in community settings or through nonprofits. And so we do our best to provide support through our programs, but what our children and our families really, really need is prevention and early mental health services. That is the missing key to the solutions that we have in our great community. And so our Black family wellness strategy is focused on boys ages 3 to 6 and working with families through a wraparound model. We have recruited some amazing wraparound facilitators, some with MSWs and have experience in the work and partnering with Urbana Early Childhood Center School and also Stratton Elementary in order to implement the program. We currently have 2 families enrolled in our pilot wraparound program, and we anticipate enrolling more of those families over time. And so I have a couple more slides on your PowerPoint handout there. And so in order for this to be effective, in order for us to test and produce models and best practices, it's also important to have an evaluation plan as part of that. And so we have developed a twofold approach to evaluating Hope for the Future. One, using a strategic doing model. This really engages people in the work, in the development, in the tweaking of having action-oriented collaborations. So we use that model, that approach to actually move quickly to implementation, and then we use the outcomes of that implementation to think about how do we make adjustments and modify along the way. And then a formative evaluation is another part of this twofold approach, collaborating with the University of Illinois to design a strength-based, culturally relevant approach, because Hope for the Future will engage primarily people of color. We want to make sure that the evaluation reflects and involves those strengths into the process. Looking at targeted messaging, it's important that we not only engage and work with individuals, but also that we send messages of hope, to our community. And so using this as a way to, the ones that we can't touch through Hope for the Future, we can touch them through messaging. We can touch them through social media. And then if we can use this work to really think about the foundation, in order for us to really tackle gun violence, our community have to feel empowered in order to tackle gun violence. And one of the ways to do that is creating hope, so they can see that young people have a future, that they can see that they can be a part of solutions. And so we hope that through this work that we can do that. And the last slide, and sorry to take up so much of your time tonight, is the 50,000-foot vision. And we've had some conversations tonight here about facilities. Almost every other day I'm asked, when is DREAM going to get a building? And I always say, I don't know if that's God's plan for DREAM right now, but I do know that we have strong partnerships where we're able to house programs in existing buildings. We have some amazing buildings that sit empty, like some of our churches, every day. And so we are moving into those spaces and rocking the dream house with them. But I think that as we think about the future for our community, one of the missing variables in solutions is we do not have a state-of-the-art early childhood center, village, facility, whatever you want to call it. We don't have a space where we're really building academic health and family health and bringing families into an environment where we are working with them around some of the areas that they need us the most. And so as we move forward with thinking about our request for support from the county board, it is towards the greater Hope for the Future initiative where we are working in these various communities, but it's also to help support the creation of something amazing for our families and having an early childhood space where we emphasize cultural education, mental health and wraparound services, trauma-informed care, STEM, all of those areas in one space that's serving families both in this central location but in satellite locations can really begin to move the needle towards a healthy community for everyone. And knowing that sustainability is important. And so some of my last comments tonight is that I recognize that ARPA funds are restricted in time. So whatever we implement has to also move beyond the ARPA funds. And so how can we empower communities to think about sustaining some of these strategies, some of these programs? How can we work with existing churches and other entities and organizations to adopt these models and these practices so that they continue to live beyond ARPA? And what's important is that is model development. If we want to be able to compete for additional resources and funding, we have to use these funds in order to develop models that's going to be effective for the future. And also using collaborative models so that we can still do the work when the ARPA money is gone. And so that's the vision of Hope for the Future, to work in communities, to work with people, to empower us to understand that we can be leaders in our own health and that is one of the ways that we're going to build hope and build a healthy future for Champaign County. Appreciate your time so much.
All right, thank you. Do you have any questions? Samantha?
Hello, Mr. Tracy.
How you doing, Miss Samantha?
Good, how are you?
Good. You,
That's good. I've been knowing you for quite some time now. I just really just got to give you a round of applause. You just took 75 dream chasers to an HBCU. I have never in my life, I've lived in Champaign my whole life. I've never seen nothing like that done. So I commend you for the work that you do. You are giving our youth hope. They've never had that before. So many times in our community, and I can live witness to what's happened. We had nonprofit organizations back in the day, but every time there was a budget cut, we were the first ones to get cut. And so we went a long period with no organizations like yourself, and then you came. And we are so very thankful to have you in our community.
thank you. Appreciate your support.
How much is your membership fee?
We do not charge a membership fee.
Exactly.
So we took 75 dreamers to St. Louis for an experience at a HBCU, and they rode a riverboat cruise, which was the first time for many of them,
Yes.
for free.
Yes.
So we don't charge any fees.
And that's what I love about your program. You also mentioned the wraparound service. So I know I just recently enrolled my son into your program, and you encourage the parents' participation, and that's awesome. One more thing I had to say. What would your request amount for for funding be?
$500,000.
$500,000.
And so a portion of that would go towards the early childhood village, and we will do the work to continue to raise monies for that. I sat down with a donor today who's willing to invest in that model creation. And then the other portion of the $500,000 would go towards building out hope for the future in Rantoul and Urbana. Many of you probably may have read that DREAM is funded through the blueprint through the state of Champaign at the amount of $216,000. And so Champaign has supported our work, and we have way more than enough resources, to do the work there, in addition to all the other grants that we have. So we hope to use county board money to funding to support implementation and piloting of Hope for the Future in other communities where we don't have those resources. Also, I'm a very transparent person. I do plan to ask those city governments for some funding as well, because we want to think about sustainability as well. So.
And then just one more question. You said you came to this community in 2007?
Yes.
Where did you come from, and can you tell us a little bit of your background work that you've done?
Absolutely. I'm originally from Mississippi, and so I left Mississippi, went to Tampa, Florida, and worked there at the University of South Florida. Then I moved to Albuquerque, and then I came here to pursue a PhD. And it wasn't the plan to complete the PhD, but it was the plan to come to Champaign. And so I am committed to being here. I've told my family that this is my last stop, and I'm a part of Champaign. I think I'm at the point where I don't feel like an outsider anymore. And I think I'm at the point where people don't treat me like an outsider anymore. But I come from, I was raised by a mother who was a social justice advocate and a community organizer, and she valued education. And so I bring that spirit with me. I just think that's important for our young people to take education as the, by the wheel, and just, continue to proceed and move through life. And so just a little bit more about me. I also worked at the Boys and Girls Club. That's where I met Samantha and her first son, and had programs there. I also was a volunteer for a long time with the Books to Prisoners, going into the jail, doing literacy with them. Had an opportunity to be a tenure track faculty at Parkland, before the budget cuts, and they cut the non-tenure people out. But I had the opportunity to lead DREAM, and so from there I've been doing DREAM since 2015 and building an amazing team. It's just not me. It's amazing. I have amazing coworkers who we work every day to ensure that dreamers have all that they need in order to grow up and be healthy and empowered and successful.
I just thank you so much for choosing us to make your community and all the good work that you do. I thank you so much, Mr. Tracy
You're
Dace.
welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
As somebody who also came to Champaign in 2007, I've been admiring the work you've been doing for a long time, Mr. Dace. So I appreciated you coming and sharing this with us. So just, I want to make sure that I totally understand. So specifically, the 500K would be for, can you just tell me specifically which, there's the 3 strategies, would it be across all 3 strategies, or would it be focusing in on one of them?
It would, so a portion of the funds would be allocated to support the creation and operation of the early childhood village as a part of the 50,000-foot vision. And the village concept is a part of strategy 1.
Okay.
Okay. So let me say, it's part of strategy 1. And so strategy 1 is wellness for all. So we need early childhood education that addresses cultural wellness and family wellness, all those aspects of wellness as a part of our, as a part of the plan. So we, a portion of that would go towards strategy 1, and that location would be a centralized village that has satellite locations in various areas. So we see that we may have a full day, 5-day week program at the village, but we're offering programs in Rantoul, Thomasboro, Philo, Champaign, Urbana, and other places may be at a reduced schedule, so maybe once or twice a week. But those children will receive similar experiences and instruction that children at the village would receive. So we want to be able to I believe in decentralizing and spreading and reaching communities as much as we can. So how do we have a centralized location that's the village, but then we are planting these satellite locations in the community, but offering similar and high quality service, but just at a reduced amount of time. And then the other portion of the request will go towards implementing the 3 strategies in Urbana and Champaign, specifically because we do have funding for, Urbana and Rantoul, because we do have funding for Champaign.
So one really quick follow-up question for that. So, and I also want to just commend you for including Rantoul, because, you know, we keep saying that these issues are not just, right, are not just issues in Champaign and Urbana, but we need to think holistically of the county, and so I really appreciate you talking about. So specifically the $500,000, would it be program costs or facility or a mix? Would it be vehicles to help you get out to these other areas? Like, what specifically would it be for?
Yeah, I can follow with the budget with you.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I can follow with a budget. It would be supporting more so program costs.
Okay.
Because one of the other areas around sustainability is that we have to train, people. We have to elevate and increase their skills so that when we need to continue to do the work, we have a trained, skilled, empowered, passionate, excited workforce to do it, right? And so we want to pour a lot of funds into training, because there's a lot of mental health models that we can train practitioners to implement. We don't always have to. I'm sorry if I offend anyone in the room. There are some ways that we can train myself and Samantha and Miss Diane in trauma healing, in circles, those sorts of things, so that that expertise is here. We continue to use it and expand it in our community. So we want to really have resources to train and develop leaders in our community that can continue to do the work that we need to do.
and then I promise this will be my last piece, is one of the things this committee's been talking about a lot, and actually, we've been talking about some folks on the board since before there was ARPA, is this idea that we do need a facility, that's like a one-stop shop where we could do some of these things. If we did figure that out, would you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had conversations with first followers as well. And so, so definitely partner with many people, first followers, Urbana Park District, Bradley Learning Center in Urbana, Not on My Watch in Rantoul, and the Cultivators Center in Rantoul as well. So yeah, definitely open to sitting down and coming up with a community plan. That's the solution, is a community plan. And so I really want to be a part of that process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a couple questions. One is the early childhood village. Is that in accordance with or complementary to like a Head Start, which to me is early childhood? I know it's not culturally specific, but it seems to grab all of the kids that, you know, have parents that are working all the time and, you know, needing some help with stuff.
Absolutely. So we are currently partnering with Head Start. So Samantha's son was in our pilot program, and so it was housed at Head Start. And so I see the village being incubated within a partner space like Head Start, because, you know, like I said before, we want to be intentional, we want to be effective. And so we want to incubate it and start it in a space where we can have the support around structuring the program, and then move it into more of a community-based facilities as we grow. So we want to take our time and make sure we grow in a healthy way.
If I can finish. Head Start has some pretty good funding, and that's always a good thing to couple on with somebody that has continually received some wonderful funding. Having been on that council before, that's pretty good. One of the things that I look at too is with the older kids. It was funny, I was watching something today and they said, you know, we don't have debate clubs anymore. We don't have people that learn how to resolve conflict in a peaceful way. And I think sometimes when you have some of these older kids, they're not thinking with their heads, they're thinking with their emotions. And I wonder how that is incorporated in some of those older kids, because I think that's a big part of what we're seeing, why people get so agitated. They don't know how to express or talk to somebody.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's a trauma response, you know, and so I think we have to move in the direction of really having mental health services in our community. Youth development works, mentoring works, but you got to have mental health, and that's the piece that's missing. Our families don't have access to it. Schools can't provide it. And so we have to begin to think about how do we equip nonprofits or other community-based organizations, maybe churches, with those practitioner tools, those tools that we could use every day to heal trauma. We can prevent violence and we can heal trauma, but we have to have the resources, and we have to have skilled people, and we also have to have a comprehensive plan in our community in order to achieve that 25% that he spoke about, right? If we want to get to that level where we can have 25% of a healed, resilient community, then we do have some resources that we need to line up so that we can achieve that. And that takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of commitment, and it takes a comprehensive county plan. You know, so as you're thinking about your community violence prevention and being on this task force, you know, in addition to the funding that you may give us, how do we reserve funds to really think about asset mapping and having sound program evaluation in place so that we can move in the direction of a comprehensive violence reduction plan for the county that encompasses the work that Champaign is going to do, Urbana will do, and also Rantoul.
My last comment. Your program is so awesome. I'm like, on Saturday, what preschool do you know is open on Saturday? And just from speaking with some of the other parents there, I heard, oh, since this program is going on, I had time to go to get a pedicure today, or I went and walked the park. And, you know, to really be able to relate to another person, you must feel and see their struggle or their life and somewhat be empathize with that person. And me being a single parent, just the fact that I was able to take my son to your program on a Saturday, and I knew from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. that was a little Samantha time because I'm going through the week, Monday through Friday, and I'm mommy, and then Saturday, I just thought it was amazing. So any way I can support the program, we're in. We're not going anywhere. Seth will graduate out your program when he's 24.
College
Okay.
graduate, absolutely.
We are definitely with you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I definitely understand what it means to have a father in the household or not, from my own experience. So I know what that can do to children, especially young males who, are worried, wondering if their self-esteem is there, and someone really wants to be there for them. And I really appreciate the programs that we've talked about today. For those things, because I think you have a better connection than sometimes are the programs that we have. The issue always becomes is how long the funding lasts, if the funding will last, the program has the energy to continue. I think that's what Diane was talking about. DREAAM actually received some money through mental health
Yes, sir.
from ARPA funds in the beginning of the year. I don't remember how much that was,
Through
$200,000.
ARPA funds, I think we received $20,000.
How much?
$20,000.
20,000?
Yes, sir. We were already funded at 80,000, and I think the ARPA funds increased us to
okay.
the ask of $100,000.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Because I've been involved in this for some time, and I know Head Start has 10-hour day, and they do some of these same things, mental health, wraparound services for the families. The Youth Assessment Center, which we also fund, does some of the same things that are listed here, trauma-informed. Both of those programs have a funding stream that can continue. And I want to see the money that spent or even given to you to move forward as long as well as possible. And I don't know where other funding is going to come from, especially for, if we have early childhood buildings now in Rantoul and across the county, the necessity of another $500,000 for a building. We heard about a building before yours, $2.5 million. The Champaign building that's been discussed, I think also is millions of dollars. And some of it seems duplicative. And one of the big issues with mental health throughout the county, and many organizations have been asking for funding to pay more so they can retain professional mental health people to do the things that you're talking about doing, and there really isn't the staff out there to get. I want all these organizations. We got to figure out who gets how much money, but to be successful, and it's going to be difficult to get the paid professionals that would do this work. With actual degrees in mental health. Up until 6 months ago, we didn't have a psychiatrist for some of the programs in the county. Maybe you're aware of all that. So if you could, kind of fill in that gap and tell me why some of the Head Start programs or the youth assessment programs really aren't fulfilling that need. Maybe to the point we wonder why we're funding them, and what should we move funds to another program? So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for your comments and your question. So, Samantha kind of said it already. Head Start is not available on Saturday. Youth Assessment Center is not available on Saturday, nor doing exposure trips, nor providing services. The youth, from my understanding, many times the Youth Assessment Center is referring to DREAAM for us to provide the services, right? And so then we are incurring the costs, to manage and provide those programs and services for those youth who are referred to us. So we are vital in this equation around community response to violence. It's also vital that we do duplicate some of the services. We do not have enough to reach the need in our community. Just an example, at the Jefferson location this summer, we have over 80 boys showing up for our program. And I think that's amazing. But that also reveals that there are many boys who are probably not being served, every day. And so we do need to duplicate, we need to increase, we need to expand the services and the opportunities in our community so that we can reach more individuals, but we need to reach them with the right tools. Just having another program that doesn't necessarily have the constructs, or it doesn't have the components of it to really address the root causes may not be an effective choice for us to make. And so we have to really think about what is missing. How can we do an asset mapping initiative in our community to really understand the gaps and the areas where our families feel most comfortable going to, right? And so I think that's another area that we need to really think about. We can create another assessment center in Rantoul or anywhere else, but will our families go there, right? Do they feel comfortable in receiving wellness programming in their neighborhood? Or do they feel comfortable coming to DREAAM on Saturday and knowing that they're going to be supported? So I think that's valuable, and we also have to balance that with ensuring that we're not duplicating. But I think at this part of the crisis that we're in, we need to triplicate, as much as we can to reach as many people as we can. So I appreciate your comment.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up question, I guess, to that. It looks like, you said you've been around and working in our community since 2015, 7 years now, 5 years of that before COVID and well before ARPA funding was a thing. So I assume you'll be able to keep serving the community with or without ARPA funding. But based on what I'm seeing here, the enrollment that you have July 21 through present, is that trending upward from when you started in 2015?
Oh,
Will that continue to trend upward, do you think?
Absolutely. We started
Okay.
with 10 boys in 2015. By 2017, we were serving 100 boys. And as you see, this year we served 350, and this summer we're serving 500. So we're trending, we're stretching, we are building capacity. We are serious about having a strong team. We have a strong board of directors. We are audited each year, so we're improving our financial health as well as the organization. We are, I know it's late, but I can just kind of share some of the other ways that we're supported in the community. So beyond the Champaign County Mental Health Board, we're also funded by United Way, the Regional Planning Commission, the WIOA funds. We have state support as well through Department of Human Services. So DREAAM's, our outcomes, our model, our commitment, our mission just resonates, and it's also documented that our outcomes are successful. And families really trust what we do. And so, yes, we will be around. ARPA money is going to allow us to build more models and to build more capacity so that we can continue to serve and serve and serve. So it's just one stop on our growth journey.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I follow you on social media, so I've seen all the work that you do and have been really impressed. I was talking with Samantha earlier about just the sheer volume of programs that you managed to run. And I'd be really excited to see what you could do with an extra boost from ARPA funding.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right. Keep it quick, Chris.
Thank you, Chair Patterson. Mr. Dace, I applaud the work that you're doing, and I saw that you said that you were trying to find partners in Urbana, and you mentioned Urbana Park District. Could
Yes,
you
sir.
briefly say a little bit about what you know, but, and I think you've also mentioned you work with other groups like First College, but could you be more specific about
Yes,
what
yes,
you're
sir.
doing
So
with
as far as
Park
Urbana is
District?
concerned, a little history. We have worked with Urbana School District, so we would push into, have you heard of SPLASH, the SPLASH program, the after-school program? So we would push into the program, meaning we would offer DREAM as a part of the after-school program. We also have partnered with Salt and Light during the summers. They would open their facility for us to offer programs there. We've done some volunteer service projects with them as well. CU Church, which is housed in the Weber Street Church, we ran a Saturday program there before the pandemic. Actually, the pandemic shut us down. And so we've done some programming there. And through the Park District, they have partnered with us in some really supportive ways, whereas they would bring or send employees to DREAM after school program in Champaign and offer like science education, those sorts of things. We have rented out Brookings to host various events, as well as, I think this in Brookings actually is where we did our soccer camp in the Urbana community. So, and we've also held things at Kings Park. So really, really good partner. We have partnered also with Bradley Learning Center in Urbana. We developed a boys program for them. I think it was the summer of 2020 during the pandemic. We have partnered with Altrusa in Champaign. We also partnered with 4-H. So again, you know, it's really about village building and how do we come together as a village, as a complete community, black, white, rich, poor. Many times ladies with gray hair say, you know, can I can I volunteer at DREAM? I'm like, you know, yes, you can. You know, we are all a part of caring adults. That's what we need in our spaces. So I hope I answered your questions. Yes, thank you.
I appreciate you coming out. I think that when it might have been my first year on the mental health board, I think might have been your first application, and to see every year you add to it and add to it, it's been really impressive.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what you can do moving forward. And with no other questions, we'll move on. Thank you for
Thank you all. Have a
coming
great
out.
night.
And Tracy, you said you had a more detailed budget of the proposal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. If you could send that to either me or Megan, and we can get it distributed to the committee members.
Okay, will do. All right. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, next is other business, discussion of funding plans and next steps, and next meeting date and time. I guess I want to propose something quickly. Some of us have been here since 5 o'clock. I know that we don't typically hold meetings in July. I think that for this specific topic, I think it's timely, and I don't want to see it wait until the August county board meeting to have the board accept a recommendation or whatever. I'd like to propose that we meet on Thursday the 7th of July. I think Stephanie said she's going to be in Chicago.
Yeah, sorry, I have a full department retreat in Chicago that day, unfortunately.
Is
I'm
it that
really
week
sorry.
or that day?
That day.
Okay. I mean, I'd like to pick a day where everybody could be here. Does anybody else have any plans for that first week?
Maybe I'll be
of
back in time, I don't know. That would be
Okay.
better.
No, there's
No,
no
there's
cow
no
in
cow.
July. Oh, what's that? Okay. Okay, what day? Okay, so do we want to do that, the Tuesday the 12th? Does that work? Yeah, I guess I should probably check.
It was just that I had said 6 was the first meeting time. I think we did 6:30 this month.
All right, so we want to say 6 p.m. on the 12th? And I imagine I have a more
Megan, does that work for you? I know 6:30 was a little better for you.
thank you.
So, Kyle, if I could.
Or the broadband task force. Okay. For. Okay, cool, yeah. And the 13th. Yeah, you can't just go around saying the task force. And I think at that meeting we have more focused discussion on, what we want to make as a recommendation. It'll give us time to get Tracy's information, and then also the Housing Authority still wants to present to us, so we can have that at the beginning of that meeting. In the meantime, we'll try to get some type of a proposal out so everybody can look at it. But yeah, is there any other comments?
I have a quick question, and it's frankly because I wasn't here at the first meeting because I was sitting on a tractor trying to get our crops in. Real quick, it doesn't have to be even specific, but just what were the asks, the total for the asks at the first meeting? Just for my own thoughts, because I didn't see it in the minutes.
So we heard from Housing Authority, but there wasn't, or was that, no, that was at the full board. There was a couple that didn't have like concrete asks, and
Okay.
the request from the 3H that First Followers is leading for the first year was like 500 and change, $547,002.17 or something really hyper specific. But yeah, so one of the things that I was thinking about is in anticipation of that, what we can do, and probably we should just be doing these on all of these. I don't know why this is like a bridge too far on all these committees, is getting all of the proposals into one packet, because throughout today, if you kept looking at me on my phone, it was because I had last week's on there. So I was like, just trying to like see, like, because some of this stuff is very, not similar. I agree with Mr. Dace about we need to be doing this in triplicate, but like, for example, if we're going to do a building, we're going to do a building, not 5 buildings, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And so like, I was trying to remember what was the building request versus so one of the things that we could do is get everything from today, the stuff that these good gentlemen are going to send us in addition to what we have, the stuff from the Housing Authority that we're about to get, and put it in a one packet, so that when we meet next time, it could just be in one thing instead of me having to flip back and forth.
Okay, thanks, because, yeah, I mean, it was
Only
just
that-
in my mind, so
I
that's.
think only the 3H had a specific financial.
Okay, so as of right now, and this is me rounding, it sounds like the actual asks have been roughly 3,550,000. I mean, that's rounding some, but and I'm not saying that that's all of them, but that's just roughly the specifics. Yeah, and that was just for my own thinking, because there weren't in the minutes any numbers.
And to be clear, the 3H was more. That was just the first year of it. I think their full ask was like 2 million total.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, like about 2.5. Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, I'd like to see that information too, all on one table, to know exactly what all the expected asks are. And also, what they're going to do with the money, and their likelihood of finding staff, while it's been discussed that people have been doing great, but as soon as they expand their programs and add buildings, that cost to operate increases also, and where will those funds come from in the future? Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Michaels?
So this year, we have 1.4 million left. We've spent $100,000 for the gun buyback program. And this was a great topic of conversation at our last meeting. At least this caucus is committed to $4 million across the ARPA landscape. So, yeah, that's okay, that's okay. So 1.5 million, but for this year, for this fiscal year, we have to make immediate decisions on 1.4 million, and then as we go into the budget process, determine if we're going to continue with that intention that we laid out in the original budget process. But that was, yeah. Nope, it would be, actually, I apologize, it was 4.1, and I believe it was Steve Summers who made that, and it was 10% of the money. And so, no, 1.5 minus would be 2.6 left.
So, and we gave money early to First Followers and DREAM, and there was another, how do we add that money into?
Yeah, well, as I said last time, we gave $770,000 roughly to the Mental Health Board, and we as a collective body, not just this body, would need to determine how that's going to play out within that $4 million commitment, whether it is or is not. But specifically for this year, we have $1.4 million left
Well, I
for
don't
this year.
understand the $750,000 not being considered money for programming, which is what we've heard a lot about, is programming that's considered gun violence money. So that's where I come up with this math of trying to figure out, it seems like a moving target of how much spending we're actually doing.
All right,
So
well, you could bring that up in the budget process.
Just for clarity, please explain this to me, Jim. Are you saying that we should subtract what we've already given to what their request is? Don't you know that money has been used since 20?
I don't, it's all money, ARPA funds that are going to programs and gun violence, and we have limited funds there that we need to make sure that we support the programs appropriately. And when we have a moving target of spending, then there's an issue with that. Because we can't tell people how much they can have if we don't.
The target hasn't changed. Nobody's being misleading. We've said from the get-go that our goal was to commit 4.1 million, and nobody's, I mean, if you don't understand it,
We
that's
went
one
from
thing, but don't-
750,
if
we
you don't
just talked
understand
about
it, that's one thing, but don't accuse
$750,000
us of being
that we
misleading.
gave away in the beginning of the year, and then somehow we got subtracted from the 1.5 million we're supposed to be spending this year. I mean, that it doesn't count all of a sudden. So,
No, let me be real clear. We allocated that money in in last year's budget process. The 4 million had not even been discussed at that point.
it was
We did
ARPA
that at
funds that we
multiple
were,
meetings.
it was
and-
ARPA
and-
funds that we were
but
appropriating.
No, let
Whether
me
it
be
was
clear. It was
last year or this year.
this year, we appropriated $1.5 million in an open category. Last year, we funded $770-something thousand of specific projects. They're two totally separate things. And again, we're going to go through the budget process again, and I don't know, I just encourage, we did a lot of work in our caucus and small group meetings, like hours and hours and hours, and then we had all of those sessions. And so obviously, if y'all want to put in that time and come with concrete, specific proposals, I'd welcome it.
You've already overspent the money is the problem.
All right, seeing no other business, call this meeting adjourned.